Law 1. Never outshine the master superiors must always feel comfortably secure in their position and intellectually superior. Displaying excessive brilliance, charm, or skill before a leader triggers deep-seated insecurity, paranoia, and covert retaliation. To navigate this safely, always make those above you appear more capable, witty, and wise than they actually are. If you generate a brilliant idea, subtly attribute its origin to your superior or present it as a natural evolution of their guidance. Your public accomplishments should serve as a mirror reflecting the master's brilliance rather than casting a shadow over it. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies' friendship is built on emotional bonds that obscure objective evaluation. Elevated friends quickly develop envy, feelings of entitlement, and resentment over debts of gratitude. Conversely, a former enemy hired for a role has everything to prove and will display greater loyalty and effort to validate the trust placed in them. Keep personal affection entirely distinct from professional appointments, evaluating people strictly by their competence and utility. When facing adversaries, look for opportunities to align interests or extend a calculated olive branch. An enemy transformed into an ally becomes a formidable pillar of support because their allegiance is rooted in mutual self-interest rather than fragile emotion. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. If people do not know what you are aiming to achieve, they cannot prepare a defense, organize opposition, or counter your strategy. Keeping your true goals hidden leaves competitors guessing and reacting to misdirections. Use decoy objects of desire, red herrings, and false sincerity to throw rivals off the scent. Maintain a bland, unreadable exterior, or adopt a passionate public stance on a minor issue to create the illusion of total transparency. By the time your real objective is finally revealed, it should be entirely too late for opponents to intervene. Law 4. Always say less. The necessary verbosity creates an immediate impression of weakness, lack of self-restraint, and commonality. The more words you expend, the higher the mathematical probability of saying something foolish, revealing a vulnerability, or surrendering leverage. Powerful individuals intimidate by remaining concise and sphinx-like. Answer questions with brevity and leave plenty of room for silence. Uncomfortable silences compel others to fill the void, often leaking vital information, intentions, or concessions. Make your statements vague, open to interpretation, and deliberate. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Reputation is the primary multiplier of power. A formidable, unassailable reputation can intimidate rivals and win battles before conflict even begins. But once a reputation is breached or tarnished, you become vulnerable to attacks on all fronts. Identify a single core strength, such as unwavering reliability, ruthless efficiency, or extreme cunning, and build your entire public identity around it, defending this image against all slights. To dismantle opponents, strategically target vulnerabilities in their reputation, allowing public skepticism to do the heavy lifting while keeping your own hands clean. Law 6. Court attention at all cost. What is unseen does not exist in the social arena, making obscurity the ultimate death to influence. To build power, you must stand out dramatically from the crowd and avoid blending into the background of everyday life. Surround your name with intrigue, mystery, or calculated controversy. Adapt a distinct visual style, adopt memorable quirks, or tie your work to high-profile events. It is far better to be criticized or attacked than to be ignored. Public focus, whether positive or sensational, creates an undeniable aura of authority and significance. Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Time and energy are finite resources. Utilizing the labor intelligence, and research of others allows you to accomplish vast projects while preserving your energy for high-level strategy and public representation. Hire experts, researchers, and subordinates to execute heavy operational tasks, gather intelligence, and construct foundations. Ensure that final deliverables, strategic presentations, and triumphs are released under your name. The world rewards results and visibility, rarely inquiring into the division of labor behind the scenes. Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Forcing an opponent to take action puts them on the defensive, expending their energy and forcing them to abandon their plans. When you react to others, you operate on their terms. When they come to you, you dictate the battleground. Lure rivals onto your home territory by dangling irresistible opportunities, information, or financial gains. Once they commit to pursuing the bait, they surrender control and become subject to your terms, timing, and conditions. Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Verbal arguments produce brief, superficial victories while generating deep-seated resentment and defensive pride in the opponent. People are rarely convinced by logic. They are moved by tangible reality. Do not attempt to prove a point through intellectual debate or heated discussion. Demonstrate your correctness through physical results, executed outcomes, and undeniable facts. Let your achievements speak without providing a verbal explanation that allows rivals to save face or argue back. Law 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky emotional states. Destructive behavioral patterns and chronic misfortune are as contagious as physical diseases. Unstable, perpetually miserable individuals often draw chaos into their lives through self-destructive habits, dragging their associates down with them. Carefully audit the emotional states of those with whom you associate, distancing yourself from chronic victims, complainers, and those who breed drama. Instead, surround yourself with optimistic, successful, and disciplined individuals, absorbing their positive momentum and good fortune. Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. True independence requires that others rely completely on your unique skills, access, or knowledge. If you can be easily replaced, you possess zero leverage. To maintain your position, ensure that your departure would cause immediate destabilization. Master a specialized skill set. Secure exclusive control over a critical supply chain or information node, or make yourself indispensable to a superior's daily operations. Never teach subordinates or colleagues enough to enable them to function without you. Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. A single act of unexpected, public honesty or calculated generosity lowers the natural defenses of even the most suspicious individuals, creating a trust buffer that masks underlying motives. Offer a valuable gift, confess a minor personal flaw, or concede an argument early in a relationship. This gesture establishes an impression of integrity and goodwill, allowing you to execute broader strategic moves without triggering suspicion. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. Entreaties based on past favors, moral duty, or emotional appeals are easily ignored or viewed as burdens. People are driven primarily by self-interest and future gain. When seeking an alliance, assistance, or resources, structure your proposal to clearly outline what the other party stands to gain. Highlight immediate profits, elevated status, or strategic advantages for them, framing your request as an opportunity rather than a favor. Law 14. Pose as a friend. Work as a spy. Critical intelligence regarding an opponent's weaknesses, hidden motives, and future plans is essential for effective strategy. Gathering this information openly provokes hostility and concealment. Adopt a warm, friendly, and inquisitive persona in social settings. Ask indirect questions. Listen attentively during unguarded moments, and observe how people behave when their guard is down. Use third parties or informal gatherings to uncover confidential details without raising alarm. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. Allowing a defeated enemy to retain even a small degree of power, wealth, or influence guarantees their eventual recovery and revenge. A lingering spark can ignite a firestorm. When engaging in conflict, do not settle for partial victories or temporary truces. Neutralize the threat entirely by dismantling their resource base, reputation, and capacity to launch a counterattack. True peace requires the total elimination of an adversary's power to harm you. Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor over exposure. Diminishes your perceived value and breeds familiarity, which leads to contempt. Scarcity increases value. Withdrawing from a group or social circle heightens your perceived status and causes others to appreciate your presence. Establish a strong initial presence to earn respect and establish your position. Once secure, strategically pull back, reducing your availability and responses. This absence creates intrigue, raises your value, and sparks concern over your potential departure. Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Humans naturally seek patterns to predict behavior and establish control. By maintaining rigid consistency, you become easy to map, counter, and exploit. Deliberate unpredictability keeps opponents off balance and defensive. Regularly break established habits, change schedules, or execute unexpected strategic moves without immediate explanation. This instability forces rivals to expend energy analyzing your motives, creating psychological leverage, and preventing them from orchestrating attacks. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Isolating yourself from society to avoid threats cuts off access to critical information, networks, and alliances. A fortress isolates you from the broader environment, turning you into an easy target. Stay mobile, accessible, and deeply integrated into your social, professional, or political ecosystem. Surround yourself with diverse networks to gather intelligence, build coalitions, and shield yourself through active engagement rather than physical or psychological retreat. Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. People respond to slights, defeats, and manipulation in vastly different ways. Targeting a vengeful, insecure, or dangerously patient individual can trigger a lifelong vendetta that far outweighs any short-term gain. Thoroughly analyze the psychological profile, background, and emotional triggers of any target before taking action. Never judge a person by their superficial appearance or current status. Ensure you never provoke someone who possesses the patience and resources to seek long-term retribution. Law 20. Do not commit to anyone prematurely swearing allegiance to a single leader, faction, or cause surrenders your freedom and makes you dependent on their fate. Remaining uncommitted allows you to play competing sides against one another, retaining ultimate independence. Maintain an air of neutrality while allowing multiple parties to compete for your support. Offer encouragement and vague promises without signing binding agreements. By remaining independent, you position yourself as the courted authority, preserving total freedom of movement. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. People love to feel intellectually superior to those around them. By appearing less intelligent, skilled, or experienced than your target, you eliminate their suspicion and induce a dangerous overconfidence. Mask your sophistication beneath an unassuming, average persona. Defer to the expertise of others, ask basic questions, and allow opponents to feel clever. Once their guard is lowered, you can execute your plans without resistance. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. When facing an overwhelming force, fighting back directly often leads to complete destruction. Surrendering gives the illusion of submission, disarming the aggressor while buying you time to plot a counter-strategy. Yield gracefully when outmatched. Do not give the enemy the satisfaction of a hard-won victory. Use the period of surrender to observe the conqueror's weaknesses, build internal strength, and wait for their natural decline before striking back. Law 23. Concentrate your forces, dispersing your energy, resources, and focus across multiple fronts dilutes your power. Maximum impact is achieved by concentrating your total capacity on a single, decisive point. Avoid the temptation to pursue too many opportunities or fight on multiple battlegrounds simultaneously. Identify the single most impactful lever, key decision maker, or critical goal, and direct your resources toward mastering it. Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. The modern professional environment functions like an ancient royal court. Success requires mastering social politics. Flatter subtly, display grace under pressure, adapt your demeanor to different personalities, and never exhibit overt ambition. Practice self-control, avoid overt displays of anger or jealousy, and master the art of indirect communication. Praise superiors without appearing subservient, remain polite to rivals, and position yourself as a stabilizing, helpful presence in all interactions. Recreate yourself, accepting the identity imposed on you by family, society, or environment limits your potential. Power requires framing your own persona, controlling public perception, and commanding attention through deliberate theatricality. Construct a memorable public persona. Adapt dramatic gestures, refine your speech, control your facial expressions, and reshape your image as circumstances demand. Treat your public self as an artistic project, never settling for a passive identity. Law 26. Keep your hands. Clean. Your public image must remain associated with efficiency, grace, and integrity. Direct involvement in messy conflicts, harsh decisions, or underhanded tactics damages your standing and invites retaliation. Use third parties, subordinates, or scapegoats to carry out unpleasant tasks, deliver bad news, or execute attacks on rivals. When mistakes occur, ensure the fault is assigned to an intermediary, leaving your reputation pristine. Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. Humans possess an innate desire to belong to a cause greater than themselves. By tapping into this drive, you can build a loyal, passionate base of followers who will defend and elevate you. Keep your message simple, grand, and emotionally charged while avoiding dense logistics. Create rituals, use uplifting terminology, frame your movement as a noble struggle against an external enemy, and position yourself as the visionary guide. Law 28. Enter action with boldness. Hesitation exposes self-doubt, creates friction, and invites opposition. Boldness strikes fear into adversaries, masks underlying flaws, and commands immediate compliance. If you are unsure of a course of action, do not execute it with timid half-measures. Commit fully with overwhelming confidence. If errors occur due to boldness, correct them with even greater audacity. The crowd remembers courageous execution, not timid hesitation. Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. A plan that accounts only for the immediate steps leaves you vulnerable to sudden twists of fate, emotional overreactions, and unexpected obstacles. True strategy requires mapping the path to the final outcome. Envision every potential obstacle, alternate scenario, and adversary response before taking the first step. Calculate the true costs and risks of victory to avoid Pyrrhic outcomes. Once the final goal is clearly mapped, execute without being swayed by temporary setbacks or distractions. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Revealing the arduous labor, endless revisions, and desperate maneuvering behind your success diminishes your perceived talent. Displaying effortless mastery creates an aura of natural genius. Hide the mechanisms, practice sessions, and backroom operations that make your achievements possible. Present finished work as if it occurred naturally and easily. Never brag about how hard you worked. Let the speed and perfection of the result imply extraordinary capability. Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. People feel in control when offered choices, making them less likely to suspect manipulation. By framing the choices so that every alternative advances your objective, you maintain absolute control over the outcome. Present carefully curated options to decision-makers, ensuring that whichever option they select benefits your overall plan. Offer choices between the lesser of two evils, or frame your preferred outcome alongside clearly undesirable alternatives to force compliance. Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. Real life is often dull, difficult, and disappointing. Those who promise grand transformations, simple solutions, or romantic ideals gain power over masses seeking escape from harsh realities. Avoid offering cold, unpleasant truths or complex explanations. Package your vision, product, or ideas as romantic opportunities for total transformation, liberation, or wealth. Tap into collective dreams rather than lecturing on practical realities. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Every individual possesses an emotional vulnerability, hidden weakness, unfulfilled desire, or secret insecurity. Once identified, this pressure point serves as leverage to influence their actions. Pay close attention to unguarded moments, emotional outbursts, childhood traumas, or persistent habits. Look for vulnerabilities that the individual attempts to hide behind an aggressive or confident exterior. Once found, work this leverage discreetly to direct their decisions. Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. The manner in which you present yourself determines how others treat you. A timid, apologetic demeanor invites disrespect and compromise, whereas high self-regard and dignity command respect. Demean yourself with aristocratic poise, unshakable confidence, and high standards. Refuse to accept poor treatment or low valuation. By acting as though you are destined for greatness, you induce others to treat you with reverence. Law 35. Master the art of timing. Power requires exquisite control over timing. Striking prematurely exposes you to unnecessary risks, while waiting too long causes opportunities to slip away. Cultivate 3 types of timing awareness. Exercise patience and emotional restraint while watching overall trends. Disrupt an opponent's rhythm by making them wait or forcing them into hasty decisions, and strike with decisive speed when the final moment arrives. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. Publicly acknowledging a minor problem, an unreachable goal, or an annoying rival grants it legitimacy and exposes your limitations. Contempt and indifference neutralize minor threats. If a minor rival attacks you or a minor goal proves unobtainable, treat it as completely beneath your notice. Divert your attention elsewhere and act as though the issue does not exist. Depriving an adversary of a response deprives them of influence. Law 37. Create compelling spectacles, striking imagery, dramatic staging, and grand visual symbols bypass rational scrutiny. appealing directly to emotions and imagination. Spectacles unify crowds and obscure underlying logistics, organize events, presentations, and public appearances with theatrical flair, utilize visual symbols, dramatic lighting, scale, and emotional storytelling to frame your message. A well-executed spectacle obscures minor flaws and establishes an impression of authority. Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. Flaunting unorthodox ideas, unconventional morals, or radical beliefs alienates the public and marks you as dangerous or eccentric, inviting isolation and hostility. Keep your advanced, unorthodox, or critical opinions private, sharing them only with a trusted inner circle. In public, adopt the customs, language, and social norms of your environment. Blending in grants you the safety needed to execute strategies undetected. Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. Anger and emotional turbulence destroy strategic judgment, leading individuals to make costly mistakes. If you can remain entirely calm while provoking an emotional reaction in an opponent, you secure a decisive advantage. Identify your rival's emotional triggers and press them discreetly. Maintain an unshakable, calm composure while baiting them into public outbursts, reckless attacks, or hasty decisions that expose their weaknesses to the room. Law 40. Despise the free lunch offers. Presented as free almost always come with hidden costs, psychological debts, or strings attached. True independence requires paying the full monetary value for quality, autonomy, and freedom of movement. Avoid accepting gifts, favors, or discounted services that create unwritten obligations. Pay top price for key resources to maintain total control, zero debt, and high standards. Be generous with your own capital to project abundance and build goodwill. Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. Succeeding a legendary, highly successful predecessor forces you to live in their shadow, inviting unfavorable comparisons and impossible expectations. Whatever you achieve will be attributed to their foundation. If you follow an extraordinary predecessor, immediately differentiate your style, direction, and identity from theirs. Break old traditions, chart a distinct course, and establish a clear contrast to ensure your accomplishments are recognized as entirely your own. Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep. Will scat most hostile movements, corporate factions, or rebellious groups rely on a single key instigator, charismatic leader, or organizer. Neutralizing that individual collapses the entire network. Do not waste time engaging every member of an opposition group. Identify the core leader driving the conflict and isolate, reassign, discredit, or banish them. Once the central shepherd is removed, the remaining followers lose cohesion and scatter. Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. Pure brute force and coercion produce latent resentment, passive resistance, and eventual rebellion. Lasting power requires persuading individuals so they want to follow your lead. Tailor your approach to the specific emotional drivers, psychological needs, and values of your audience. Appeal to their pride, soothe their anxieties, and frame your goals as the fulfillment of their personal desires to secure genuine loyalty. Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. Mirroring an opponent's behavior, strategy, or attitude confuses them and exposes their tactics. When you mirror enemies, they cannot decipher your intentions, and when you mirror neutral parties, they feel validated and understood. Use the mirror effect to neutralize an enemy by doing exactly what they do. Reflect the values and habits of others to build connection. Project an opponent's misdeeds back at them to highlight their hypocrisy, or mimic a situation to create a convincing illusion that misleads rivals. Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. While people intellectually support the idea of innovation and progress, sudden, radical changes trigger deep anxiety, instinctual resistance, and rebellion due to lost familiarity. When introducing reforms, advocate for change in theory while keeping daily routines and structures grounded in traditional practices. Frame major shifts as minor adjustments or returns to historic values. Slow, incremental evolution prevents pushback. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. Appearing completely flawless, invulnerable, and consistently successful breeds envy, suspicion, and hidden hostility. Envy creates silent enemies who plot your downfall from the shadows, intentionally display minor, harmless flaws, quirks, or vices to humanize your image. Admit to small errors, or attribute a portion of your success to pure luck. This deflects envy, lowers suspicion, and makes your power far more palatable to peers. Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. The moment of victory is often the moment of maximum danger. Overconfidence and arrogance after a triumph can push you too far, provoking new enemies, overextending your resources, and creating a disastrous reversal of fortune. Set a clear, defined objective before entering any struggle or campaign. Once that goal is achieved, halt your momentum, consolidate your gains, and secure your position. Do not allow the rush of success to drive you into reckless expansion. Law 48. Assume formlessness. Committing to a rigid structure, predictable strategy, or fixed form makes you an easy target for attacks. Adaptability and fluidity prevent opponents from finding a point of leverage against you. Remain flexible, open to change, and unattached to fixed plans. Adapt your strategy, communication style, and structure to shifting environments and threats. By accepting that everything changes, you remain unassailable, capable of pivoting instantly, while your rigid competitors break under pressure.